The 4 police officers accused of killing Mtukuzisi and Tumba have been granted bail of 8,000 rand each. The Johannesburg Magistrate's court today finding that they're not a flight risk and should not remain behind bars until their trial. The National Prosecuting Authority opposed bail. It's called on Ntumba's family and the public at large not to be discouraged by today's ruling. Ntumba was fatally shot in Bloemfontein earlier this month during student protests. For more on what happened in court, joined now by our reporter Zakona Chona, who's been following the story for us. Zakona, good afternoon to you. This is one of those cases where you'll have families of the police officers rejoicing, families, the Ntumba family, probably bereft today.
And the family members of the police officers have been attending court since the first court appearance, as well as their colleagues in the South African Police Service to support them. They say they don't feel what has happened to them has been fair. And as the judgment was handed down, you could hear a round of applause coming from the audience. So certainly those families are very pleased with what transpired in court today. Now, the magistrate very clear that the NPA failed to convince the court that there would be public disorder should the police officers be released on bail. We know that the Student Representative Council of Wits University, for example, have also been very present in court. And post Ntumba's death, there were protests that took place in the streets of Bloemfontein, but the magistrate said there was no statement and no formal statement submitted to the court to show that there would be public disorder should these police officers be released on bail. Now, the other one, as you've mentioned, they are not a flight risk. They have permanent addresses in South Africa. They don't have any business abroad, as well as the fact that their families live within the country, and some of them very close to the court precinct, which means they would be able to attend court should the matter go to trial.
I mean, there are various things. I mean, normally the presumption is that you do get bail, so in a way it was always going to be a tough case for the state. But how's the National Prosecuting Authority responding to this?
So the National Prosecuting Authority has been standing with the stance that they should not be granted bail, arguing that it would cause public disruption, and also given that the evidence that was brought in court by the investigating officer showed that the officers misused their power when responding to those protests. The investigating officer said that they were just shooting aimlessly at anyone. We know that his statement showed that they shot at people, students from the Johannesburg Engineering Institute that had been waiting for a bus. So those are the witnesses that the NPA has. It's very interesting that the students who were injured in this incident and those who were shot at are not actually Wits University students. So given those grounds, the NPA was opposing bail, also stating that the CCTV footage that it has places all 4 of those officers at the scene at the time. 3 of them were firing shots. 1 of them was driving the Inyala, got off the Inyala, saw what his colleagues were doing and did not act. Also, the investigating officer saying that the CCTV footage shows that the police were in fact informed shortly after Ntumba fell to the ground that there is a man who was injured. But what they did was they got onto the car, onto the vehicle rather, and they left the scene. But NPA is saying that this is not the end of the case. Let's take a listen to what they had to say after those court proceedings.
The release of any accused person on bail does not mean it's the end of the case. Bail is actually an exercise of securing the attendance of an accused person for the duration of his or her trial. So there is the part that we wish the society out there, including the members of the family, to understand that this does not mean the end of the case. The court that hears the bail application, its purpose is to come to a conclusion on whether or not the person will be able to attend their trial. It's not for this court to determine the guilt or innocence of a person, but rather is to ensure that the person who applies for bail will be able to attend their trial. They will not be in trial.
It's an incredibly important case. There's been a lot of public outrage. When's the next step?
The 21st of May, it's been postponed to then for further investigation.
So, Chona, thanks very much indeed. I'm fairly certain I know where she's going to be on the 21st of May. Oh, well, it's an important story, a developing story. There's going to be more reaction to that bail decision through the afternoon.